Yo, what's good, gamers? My name is Dr. Ryan Terao, Psych Sensei here, and I'm super stoked to bring you this next episode of QueueUP. But before we cue in, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, share this video, pay it forward, and help all gamers in our community get a little closer to reaching their final form. And also, whether you're a player, a coach, an organization, and you want some resources or that sweet brainy blue buff, head over to my website, psychsensei.com. And while you're there, if you want to fill out a free consultation form and figure out your win condition and start working towards it today, let's go! And also, if you never want to miss a wise word from your sensei himself, please remember to follow me on Twitter at psych_sensei or join my Discord community and we can start talking today. In this episode of QueueUP, I sit down with the powerful MC Romedy himself and we talk about things like sports psychology, how to become a better player, or how to increase your in-game performance. This conversation is super interesting and I can't wait to share it with you. So are you stoked to queue up? Let's get it. Yo, what's good, gamers? What's good? My name is Dr. Ryan Terao, Psych Sensei here, and welcome to this episode of QueueUP. Today, I'm bringing you my good friend MC Romedy, who is a psychologist, like clinical psychologist in training. Like what?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Clinical psychologist in training, interested in esports, and I just thought you'd be a very interesting person to talk to. Like we had a meeting before talking about the intersection of esports and psychology and what you're interested in, and so I'm just down to vibe with you. I know that we talked a little bit about like gambling disorder, but we were just even talking before this is like going everywhere, so we're just gonna let this thing ride. But yeah, tell everyone a little bit about yourself, dude.
Yeah. So hi, I'm Romedy. Currently, I'm a third-year PhD student at the University of Toledo. That is my cat Allie running on her cat wheel behind us there. Sorry. Sprinting off the
Sprinting,
wall.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, third-year PhD student at the University of Toledo in their clinical psych program. I research the intersection between our technology use and our psychopathology. So how our technology use impacts our mental health, the good and the bad. I have a specific skew on the development of diagnostic criteria for potential new disorders, but that's not the only thing that I tend to study. So that's the short end of me as a clinical person.
Interesting, interesting. So is there any like specific things that you're looking at, like increasing player performance or gambling addiction or gaming addiction? Like is there anything intersections that you're currently like consider like looking into?
Sure. Man, okay, so here's a complex answer. In Europe, the diagnostic manual they use is the International Classification of Diseases.
Hmm?
There is a proposed, as of 2018, 2017, there is a proposal for a internet use disorder that's been included for future study. Um, Huge, big argument, debate about those diagnostic criteria because they basically mirror a substance use disorder criteria, including things like tolerance, withdrawal, physiological symptoms, all that kind of jazz. And at least on the surface, if you're not super versed in it and you're looking, maybe as a parent who really cares about your kid or an outside teacher, something like that, if you're looking in, I think it might be easy to misinterpret some of those criteria, right?
Hmm.
So you might think you see tolerance and withdrawal, but it's not really the clinical definition of tolerance and withdrawal. So those are the criteria that are proposed. It has not yet been ratified as an internet use disorder. I think it's a little dangerous to go there right now. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but the way it's proposed right now, I think is really, really dangerous. And I think it might lead to a lot of over pathologization.
Hmm.
And so I really don't like this intersection where we have the potential to over diagnose a potential disorder, especially when it's on like a moral ground, right? So you have people saying, "Oh, you shouldn't spend that much time on the internet. You don't need to." That concerns me, right?
Yeah, for sure. I was like, wait, are you talking about internet use disorder? You're talking about ADHD and depression, anxiety. Like, what is
Right.
what are you talking about
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
overdiagnosed here? Like,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, all right. So, I think the first thing in my head, while I kind of like giggled, was like, what does internet tolerance look like? Like, what is like,
Yeah.
how do you define that?
Yeah. From the traditional substance use thing. So for everybody listening in, tolerance is this idea that you have to have larger and larger and larger doses of a substance in order to achieve the same experience from it, right? So you might have some expectation of what's going to happen when you take a substance. tolerance is that I need more and more and more of it across time to combat the homeostatic properties, just your body trying to return to some baseline and your body's ability to digest or break down, the enzymes to break down that substance. So think about alcohol. If you drink alcohol regularly, you're going to require more and more and more drinks across time in order to experience that buzz, right? If you apply it over to internet use, because it's just been directly pulled from the substance use disorder criteria, you would require more and more and more, or longer and longer and longer durations of using the internet to achieve the same whatever that the disorder is trying to get at. And you've hit two of the big critiques right here, because what in the world does that look like? You can't just continue to use the internet more and more. There is a functional impairment point after which you've used the internet where it will impair your life because you've just spent so much time on it. But is that tolerance? Or is that you're getting something else out of it? Or is that, as you suggested, boredom, anxiety, depression, any number of other things? The other piece of this is who gets to decide if using too much, spending too much time on the internet is itself a problem. How do we draw lines between work-related or school-related internet use versus gaming-related internet use? My cat is on my desk, and I'm worried she's going to knock my microphone out. So I'm going to stop talking for a second and let you handle it.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. I think that's get down to the verbiage. I mean, I think that
Yeah.
it's really interesting because when does it actually matter,
Yeah.
right? Like as a practitioner, I think when I look at substance or even the DSM in general or ICD-10 or now 11, the criteria, whenever you look at it, the first thing is this person experiencing dysfunction or can they operate in their life? And if the answer
Yes.
is no, I cannot diagnose anything. For example, if someone comes in and they, can't manage a schedule, they're impulsive, they are very energetic, they bounce from topic to topic, they're fun, they can hyper focus on some things, I don't know, flavors and symptoms and probably diagnosable because, they have all these things, but they either have managers or people or support systems in place to kind of keep them structured, and it's not an impairment. And in fact, it's really helping them be a very successful actor, gamer, streamer, that they have these qualities. And so if they're not experiencing any types of dysfunction, we cannot say that they have in fact some type of disability or diagnosis. I think that's really interesting when you get down to those nitty-gritties of who gets to be the judge and is this a functional impairment or not for work or what have you. That I think that's, I don't know, I haven't really thought about that with another
Well,
person.
even just think about like email use, right? So email use would fall under the category of internet use because you have to access the internet in order to get your email. Well, if you have somebody, especially right now, lockdown, quarantine, work from home, that environment, when, if you get up in the morning, you check your email and you constantly just have your email open, or you're checking it, throughout the day, or you're just stopping whatever you're doing to go answer an email. And then the last thing you do before you go to bed is check your email. Well, is that an anxiety disorder, or is that an internet use disorder, or is that some function, right, of having to work from home and suddenly having your work life structure absolutely disrupted and marred, and have those two things combined together, right? Like
Yeah.
what's the actual, I guess from my perspective, the actual answer is adjustment disorder, but that's kind of the catch-all that I use.
But see, the thing with adjustment disorder is that the shitty thing with that one is that it requires a time limit, right?
Yeah.
There's a
Yes.
time
Yes.
frame, and then after that, then you re-diagnose after that time frame is up. But then it comes back down to like, oh my god, that's so funny. I was just watching Rick and Morty where they're like, oh, what are these? They're the unproductive. It's like, we just filter them back through the system. That's exactly what you kind of do, right? You just kind of filter that one back through the system. Let's be real. Game designers and developers know
Yes, they do.
everything
They know
shiny. They give you
they
badges,
know the gambling
rewards.
pieces.
They
Yep.
have people like us working for them to make it
Yep.
exciting. I
Yep.
mean, if you're into these kinds of things, some really cool documentaries that I've been trying to push everyone has been like The Social Dilemma. If you haven't seen that
Yes.
one, go watch that one. It's amazing. And there was another one, wasn't this, but it was one more where they're like trying to make a digital picture of you. I have to figure it out, but
Oh, interesting. I haven't
it
seen that one.
it's really interesting. And the whole premise is like, of course, they want you to interact with their product. They want to
Yeah,
keep you in your
engagement. It's all
engagement.
engagement.
But it's really interesting that they didn't teach them what could happen or the ethical pieces that could happen of
Yeah.
vying for your attention. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and as society continues, your attention gets pulled in so many different places because everything is.
So let's back up real quick and let's
Yeah,
go
yeah.
pick up a couple of these gambling pieces
Woo.
because I want to make sure that everybody understands like really clearly what we mean here. Because for you and I, it makes sense, and for other folks, it may not. Um, Not that people are dumb; it's just people may not have knowledge of gambling disorder. So in games, and like you said, developers are very, very, very smart and crafty about how they do this. Games, whether it's an RPG, an MMO, whether it's like every MOBA that's out today uses pieces of this. The auto chess genre is all about exactly some of these gambling principles, right? So the core of it is how it works, and then I'll tell you how it gets implemented. Um, Gambling is all centered around what's known as a schedule of reinforcement. So when we have a reliable, consistent schedule of reinforcement, things get boring, right? We know when we're going to get paid. We know how much we make per hour. Generally speaking, if you're an artist, it's a different story sometimes, which is unfortunate. But broadly speaking, most people know when their paycheck is going to come in, when they're going to get that money. That's a schedule. That's a fixed schedule of reinforcement. Um, what gambling really pulls on is this idea of a variable ratio schedule of reinforcement. So a ratio means that it's not predictable when it's going to happen. If you think about a slot machine, if somebody right in front of you pulls the slot machine and hits the jackpot, it's unlikely that that next pull is also going to result in a jackpot, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's just unlikely to happen because we don't know the ratio. We don't know how many pulls is going to be required before the machine's going to hit maximum probability. So that's a ratio. The variable part means that the ratio is not fixed. The ratio will change across time. So slot machines have different algorithms they use. Sometimes, the probability goes up after 13 pulls. Sometimes the probability goes up after 50 pulls, whatever it is. Gambling is all about the dopamine release that we get associated with those variable ratio schedules of reinforcement. Games have caught on to this. Every time you purchase a loot chest in a game, a loot box, a crate, whatever it is, and you roll that crate, right? That is using this little bit of gambling to try and hit on things. Microtransactions across the board use gambling principles to drive your engagement and to get your money too. But it's all based on your dopamine release. You feel good when you get the item that you want. Why do you run the big raids in WoW or other dungeons 1,000 times to get that one item to drop to get that dopamine release, right? Why, when you start a game of PUBG or Fortnite or any of those other battle royale type games, when you're trying to pick where you're going, it is random what you're going to get within the game. So you're playing the game to get the hit, to get the good item to start the game, to feel confident that you're going to win that round, right? Part of why battle royales have become so popular is exactly that gambling principle right there. So mobile games, online games, whatever it is, traditional PC games, whatever. Why do the $60 or $80 AAA game titles, why are they falling by the wayside a little bit? Why are they not as profitable, becoming more difficult to produce? That's why, because now we are adjusted to these variable ratio schedules of our dopamine release. And we don't get that out of these AAA games in the same way that we get them out of so many other things.
One of my teachers or professors in undergrad said that stress is just the lack of resources. When you don't have them, you feel out. But
Mm-hmm.
know that you always have the resources, you just aren't accessing them.
Yep. Cortisol has a funny way of impairing. So here's a fun fact. With anger, really extreme anger restricts your access to memory, right? It chemically restricts access to memory that does not directly support your anger. So part of why removing tilt is such a big deal in games, especially in a competitive environment, you need all of that memory and all of that history in order to really truly perform at your best. If you're tilted, only decision-making processes that directly support your anger in that moment are available to you, which means you don't have the complete complement of logic and problem solving. So that's why combating tilt is really, truly such a big deal. If you want to perform your best, you've got to be able to effectively combat and manage your anger.
Yep. And stress makes you stupid. But here's the
So yes,
curveball. You need a little bit of it.
you need a little bit of it.
And
Short term.
yep, you need a little bit of it. And here's the thing. Each person needs a certain amount of arousal to perform at their best, and that's different
Yes.
across the board. You could
Yes.
be that person that needs to be really zen and calm and serene to perform. You could be that
Mhm.
other guy slapping himself in the face, yelling, getting really hyped up because that's what you need. But
Yep.
finding that place for you is important so you can understand when you're at your best to play or
Yes.
think or whatever you want to.
Yes. Exactly.
Because I think too, something that people forget or don't think about is that we're talking about games, of course. We're talking about games,
Yeah.
we're talking about performance. But what people forget is that, like, dude, life is a
All of
like
it.
taking a test
All
is
of
a
it.
performance, asking out someone is a performance, like showing up to work and your best is a performance. But people don't think that they can employ these things that we're talking about into their daily life.
You can though.
Right?
You can though.
You can. Absolutely. How many times have you been nervous before an interview or I mean driving, maybe if you're learning how to drive or what have you? All of it. You
Yes.
can all of these things. And when you talk about tilt, what we're really talking about is like cognitive dysregulation. So if you ever
Yeah.
feel really upset about something, really sad about something, you could say you're tilted IRL. But we're just talking about frontal lobe shutting down. That's tilt.
Yes.